The space station drifted quietly at the edge of a busy star route. Long metal halls curved around its core, filled with soft lights, low engine sounds, and the mixed voices of many species. Ships came and went every hour, carrying traders, workers, and travelers from faraway worlds. To most beings, the station was just another stop. To a young alien girl named Lily, it felt like an endless maze. Lily was small for her kind. Her skin had a pale blue tone, and her large dark eyes reflected the lights of the station. She stayed close to her escort when they arrived, holding onto a small case that carried her personal things. Her people were not used to places like this. They preferred quiet worlds and strict order. The station was loud, crowded, and confusing. At first, everything went as planned. Lily followed behind the tall adults of her group as they moved through the docking area. But then a loud alarm sounded. A cargo lift malfunctioned nearby, and people scattered to avoid it. In the confusion, Lily was pushed gently but firmly to the side. She stumbled, lost her grip, and when she looked up, her escort was gone. She froze. Strange beings moved past her in all directions. Some were tall, some short, some covered in fur, others in metal suits. Their languages blended into noise she could not understand. Her heart beat fast. She tried to remember what she was taught. Stay calm, stay still, wait. But the station felt too big and the fear grew stronger with every second. Lily took a few careful steps forward, hoping to spot a familiar shape or color. She saw none. The halls branched into more halls. Signs hung from the ceiling, covered in symbols she could not read. Her breathing became shallow. She felt very small. She did not notice the human at first. Mark was working nearby, kneeling beside an open wall panel. He wore a simple gray work suit with a tool belt around his waist. His hair was dark and slightly messy, and his face showed the tired look of someone halfway through a long shift. He was focused on a loose cable that kept causing power flickers in this section of the station. As he tightened the last connector, he heard a soft sound behind him. It was not loud, just a small, broken noise like someone trying not to cry. He paused and turned his head. A few steps away stood Lily. She was trying very hard to be brave, but it showed in her posture. Her hands were clenched around her small case. Her eyes were wide and her body was stiff with fear. Mark had seen many species pass through the station, but he had never seen one like her before. Still, one thing was clear. She was a child and she was lost. Mark stood up slowly. He made sure his movements were calm and not sudden. He remembered the safety training given to all station workers. When dealing with unknown species, stay relaxed, use open body language, and speak gently. "Hey there," he said softly. Lily flinched at the sound of his voice. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with worry. He was tall compared to her, broad-shouldered, and clearly not from her world. Everything about him was unfamiliar. She took a small step back. Mark noticed and immediately stopped moving. He raised one hand slowly, palm open, a universal sign of peace that worked more often than not. "It's okay," he said, even though he did not know if she understood his words. "I'm not going to hurt you." Lily did not understand the language, but she heard the tone. It was calm, low, and steady. Not sharp or demanding. That alone eased her fear just a little. She made a soft sound, something like a question. Mark smiled gently. He pointed to himself. "Mark," he said, tapping his chest. Lily watched him closely. After a moment, she hesitated, then pointed to herself. "Lily," she said quietly in her own language. Mark did not understand the word, but he understood the meaning. He nodded. "Lily," he repeated carefully. Her eyes widened slightly. He had said it almost right. Encouraged, Mark slowly pointed down the hall and then made a confused expression, shrugging his shoulders. "Lost?" he asked. Lily looked in the direction he pointed, then back at him. She nodded once, a small movement. "Okay," Mark said. "That's okay. We'll figure it out." He did not rush to grab her or touch her. Instead, he stepped slightly to the side, giving her space. He pointed to her case, then to a nearby bench built into the wall. "Sit," he asked. Lily considered him for a long moment. Something about his patience made her trust him. She walked to the bench and sat down carefully, placing the case on her lap. Mark let out a quiet breath of relief. He crouched a short distance away so he would not tower over her. He took out his station communicator and opened the general assistance channel. "This is Mark in Corridor 7, he said. "I've got a lost kid here. Alien, small blue skin. Looks scared. Any reports?" The communicator crackled with replies. None matched Lily yet. While he waited, Mark glanced at Lily. She was watching him closely, her fear mixed with curiosity. He smiled again and reached into a pocket on his belt. He pulled out a small nutrition bar still wrapped. "Hungry?" he asked, holding it out but not moving closer. Lily stared at it. She did not know what it was, but she understood the offer. Slowly she shook her head. Mark nodded. "Okay." He sat there with her in silence for a few moments. People passed by, but Mark positioned himself slightly between Lily and the crowd, a quiet shield. He noticed how her shoulders slowly relaxed. Her grip on the case loosened. After a while, Lily looked up at him and made a soft clicking sound, followed by a few words in her language. Her tone was uncertain but curious. Mark laughed lightly, not at her, but at the situation. "I wish I knew what you were saying," he admitted. Even though she did not understand the words, Lily understood the feeling. She made a small sound that might have been laughter. Soon Mark's communicator beeped. Another voice spoke. "Escort located. Species from the Velen system. They're looking for a child." Mark looked at Lily and smiled wider. "Good news," he said, though she could not understand. "I think we found your people." He stood up slowly and held out his hand, not too close, just enough to offer help. Lily looked at his hand. Then she looked up at his face. She saw no threat there, only calm and kindness. After a short pause, she reached out and placed her small hand in his. Her hand was cool and light. Mark adjusted his grip carefully, making sure not to squeeze. Together they walked down the hall. When they reached the meeting point, Lily saw her escort rush toward her, relief clear on their faces. They spoke quickly to her, checking that she was unharmed. Lily nodded and replied, but her gaze kept drifting back to Mark. One of the adults turned to Mark and gave a formal gesture of thanks. Mark waved it off. "No problem," he said. "Just doing my job." As Lily was led away, she looked back one last time. Mark lifted his hand and gave a small wave. She raised her hand too. That moment stayed with her, long after the station disappeared behind her ship, and long after she stopped being a frightened child. Years passed, slow and steady, like the quiet movement of stars across the sky. The frightened child who once stood lost on a space station grew into someone very different. Lily was no longer small or unsure. She became calm, focused, and strong in ways that mattered to her people. Her homeworld was a place of balance and structure. Tall cities were built in clean lines. Daily life followed strict rules that had not changed for generations. Every role was chosen early. Every action was measured. Feelings were kept private. Kindness was respected, but it was not valued above order. To Lily's people, order meant survival. From a young age, Lily showed great skill in learning and problem-solving. She listened carefully, spoke only when needed, and followed tradition with care. Elders noticed her discipline. Teachers trusted her judgment. Over time, she was given more responsibility than others her age. Yet inside her mind, there was always a quiet difference. Sometimes, late at night, Lily would remember the space station. She remembered the noise, the confusion, and the fear she felt as a child. Most of all, she remembered the human named Mark. His face was not clear anymore, but his voice and actions remained sharp in her memory. He had not followed a rule or tradition. He had simply helped. That memory did not fade. It grew. As Lily matured, she began studying other species, as was required for those being trained for leadership. Most of the lessons focused on power, borders, and risk. Humans were listed as unpredictable, emotional, and physically fragile. They were described as a species that relied on tools and cooperation rather than strength. Lily listened carefully, but she felt something was missing. She requested access to deeper records. This surprised her teachers, but her record was strong, so permission was given. Lily spent many quiet hours reading reports, watching recordings, and listening to translated human speech. She learned about human history. It was filled with conflict, mistakes, and loss. But it was also filled with rebuilding, helping, and trying again. Humans failed often, yet they did not stop reaching out to one another. Even when there was no clear reward. This puzzled her. On her world, help was given by role, not by choice. If someone helped another without duty, it was seen as inefficient. Yet humans did this often. They helped strangers. They protected those weaker than themselves. They even helped other species, sometimes at great cost. Lily thought of Mark again. He had no reason to help her. She was not his kind. She held no power. She could offer nothing in return. Still, he had treated her as an equal. Not as a problem. Not as a task. As a person. That thought stayed with her during meetings and training sessions. When elders spoke about control and stability, Lily listened, but she also wondered. What if kindness was not weakness? What if it was a strength her people had never measured? As the years passed, Lily's role grew. She became a coordinator between city groups, then an advisor in planetary planning. Her calm presence eased tension. Her words carried weight. Others began to seek her opinion, not because she spoke loudly, but because she spoke with care. When disputes arose, Lily listened to all sides. She asked questions others ignored. She searched for solutions that allowed everyone to keep dignity. This was unusual, but it worked. Conflicts ended faster. Trust grew slowly but clearly. Some elders noticed the change. They did not oppose her, but they watched her closely. During one council session, a debate rose over contact with nearby systems. Some wanted stronger defenses. Others wanted isolation. Lily spoke last as tradition demanded. She did not argue loudly. She did not challenge authority. She spoke of understanding. She spoke of learning how others thought, not just how strong they were. She spoke of cooperation, of shared safety. She did not mention humans by name, but her ideas reflected them clearly. The room was silent when she finished. Afterward, an elder approached her in private. The elder asked where her ideas came from. Lily answered honestly. She spoke of her studies. She spoke of observation. She did not speak of Mark, but the elder seemed to sense there was more. "You think differently," the elder said. "Yes," Lily replied calmly. "Because I have seen a different way." The elder did not argue. Instead, they nodded slowly. From that day on, Lily's influence grew faster. She was invited to lead research efforts into interspecies behavior. She reviewed first contact protocols. Quietly, she adjusted language. Where others wrote control, she suggested communication. Where others wrote risk, she added opportunity. No one stopped her. The results were positive. In her private time, Lily continued to study humans. She watched recordings of rescue crews pulling strangers from danger. She listened to stories of humans crossing space to deliver aid to worlds not their own. Again and again she saw the same pattern. Humans helped because they believed it was right. That belief settled deep within her. Lily knew her world might never become like theirs. And she did not wish it to. But she believed her people could learn something important. That order without kindness was empty. That stability without care could break under pressure. Sometimes she wondered what had happened to Mark. Whether he still worked on that station fixing cables and helping strangers. She doubted he remembered her. To him, it was probably just another day. That thought did not make the memory smaller. It made it stronger. Because Lily understood something now. The greatest changes did not always come from leaders or great events. Sometimes they came from small moments, from simple choices, from one person deciding to help another. And that understanding shaped every choice she made from then on. Tension did not arrive suddenly. It grew slowly, like a crack spreading through solid stone. At first, it was only small disagreements between nearby systems. Trade routes were questioned. Borders were tested. Words became sharp during council meetings. Lily watched all of it with careful eyes. She was now one of the youngest senior leaders her world had ever known. Her voice carried weight, even among elders who had once doubted her different way of thinking. She listened more than she spoke, and when she spoke, others listened. Reports began to arrive from outer regions. Several species were arguing over access to shared space stations and travel lanes. Old fears returned. Some groups began moving civilians away from border areas. Others prepared defense fleets, claiming it was only for safety. Lily studied every report. She noticed a pattern. Where fear spread, order began to fail. Rules became tools of control instead of protection. Civilians suffered first. Then the humans appeared in the reports. They did not arrive with large fleets or demands. Instead, they sent medical ships, engineers, and peace teams. They helped evacuate families from dangerous zones. They repaired damaged stations without asking who owned them. They spoke to all sides, even those who did not trust them. Some leaders saw this as weakness. Lily did not. She watched recorded footage of a human relief station near a conflict zone. Humans worked side by side with other species, sharing supplies and space. When arguments broke out, they did not shout. They listened. When threats were made, they did not threaten back. They focused on protecting those who could not protect themselves. As Lily watched, a familiar feeling rose within her. She remembered the space station from her childhood. The fear. The confusion. And the calm human who had knelt beside her and spoken gently, even when he did not understand her words. The same calm was here. In council meetings, many leaders argued that humans should stay out of the conflict. They said humans were too emotional, too involved. They warned that helping everyone meant choosing sides without knowing it. Lily waited. When it was her turn to speak, she did not argue against their fear. She acknowledged it. Fear spreads faster than truth, she said calmly. And when it spreads, civilians suffer. Some leaders shifted in their seats. She continued. Humans are not stopping fleets. They are not taking control. They are protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That is not weakness. That is focus. An elder asked, and if they fail? Lily answered without hesitation. Then they will try again. That is what they do. The room grew quiet. More reports arrived over the following weeks. In areas where humans operated, violence slowed. Civilians were safer. Communication reopened between hostile groups. No system was fixed completely, but collapse was avoided. Lily felt something settle inside her. A long-held question finally had an answer. Human strength was not in weapons or numbers. It was in choice. They chose to help even when it cost them time, safety, and resources. They chose to stand between danger and the innocent. They chose empathy again and again. That choice reminded her of Mark. He had not known who she was. He had not known if helping her would matter. He had helped anyway. One evening, Lily stood alone in her private chamber, looking out at the stars beyond her world. Ships moved slowly in the distance, small lights against the dark. Somewhere out there, humans were still working, still helping. She realized then that she had carried a debt for many years. Not a debt of power or status. A debt of kindness. She had used what she learned from that small moment to guide her people. But she had never returned the kindness to its source. She had never stood for humans the way one human had stood for her. That would change. At the next High Council gathering, Lily made a proposal that surprised many. She suggested a formal alliance focused on civilian protection, led jointly by her people and humans. Not a military force but a coordinated response group for crises. There was resistance. Some feared it would weaken traditional authority. Others worried it would pull them too close to unstable regions. Lily did not raise her voice. She spoke with steady confidence. Order exists to protect life, she said. If order cannot do that, then it must grow. The vote was close. But it passed. Messages were sent. Diplomatic channels opened. Lily personally oversaw the first contact with human representatives. She listened carefully just as she always had. She noticed how humans spoke openly, admitted limits, and focused on shared goals. They reminded her of Mark again. As cooperation began, Lily felt a quiet satisfaction. This was not about politics or strategy. It was about balance. About returning what had once been given. Late one night, after the final meeting ended, Lily accessed an old station archive. She searched for records from many years ago. It took time, but she was patient. She found him. A maintenance worker. Station logs. A name. Mark. She sat still for a long moment looking at the simple record. No titles. No honors. Just a person who had done his job and helped a lost child. Lily felt a small smile form. It is time, she said softly to herself. Not time for speeches or praise. Time for thanks. And this time she would not be the frightened one. The space station looked smaller than Lily remembered. Or perhaps she had grown larger in ways that had nothing to do with size. The halls were still curved metal, the lights still soft and steady, the distant hum of engines still filled the air. Ships arrived and departed as they always had. To everyone else, it was just another station along a long route. To Lily it was a place where everything had begun. She walked through the docking ring with calm steps, escorted by a small group of advisors. They kept a respectful distance. This journey was personal. Lily had asked for privacy, and her request was honored. Many beings turned to look at her as she passed. Her presence was known. She was no longer a lost child. She was a leader, a voice of influence across several systems. Yet her posture was simple. She wore no heavy symbols of power. Only a small mark of her people worn close to her chest. She stopped at a familiar corridor. The walls had been repaired since her last visit long ago. The panels were newer. The lights brighter. But the shape of the place was the same. Memory filled the space easily. Lily took a slow breath. Station records had told her where to look. A maintenance section, far from command decks and meeting halls. The kind of place most leaders never visited. That did not surprise her. She walked on. Mark was crouched beside an open panel, just as he had been all those years ago. His hair was lighter now, touched with gray. His movements were slower but careful. He wore the same kind of work suit, the same tool belt, worn smooth from years of use. He was focused on his task, muttering quietly to himself about a faulty sensor. Lily stopped a short distance away and watched him. Time had changed many things. But not this. She waited. When Mark finished adjusting the panel, he stood and stretched his back with a quiet groan. He turned and froze. A tall alien woman stood in the corridor watching him. Her eyes were dark and steady. There was something familiar in her gaze, though he could not say why. "Ah," Mark said, clearing his throat. "Can I help you?" Lily tilted her head slightly. The movement was gentle, careful. "Yes," she said in clear, practiced English. "You already have." "Long ago." Mark frowned, confused. He looked her over again. Her face, her posture, the calm certainty in her voice. Something stirred at the edge of his memory. "I'm sorry," he said. "Have we met?" Lily took a step closer, then stopped, leaving space between them. "Many years ago," she said. "On this station. I was small. I was lost. I was afraid." Mark's breath caught. He searched her face again, more carefully this time. A memory surfaced: blue skin, wide eyes, a small case held too tightly. A child standing alone in a crowded hall. His eyes widened. "Wait," he said slowly. That was you?" Lily nodded. "I am Lily." For a moment Mark said nothing. He leaned back against the wall, trying to steady himself. "Well," he said at last, a little laugh slipping out, "I'll be. You're all grown up." "Yes," Lily replied softly. "Because you helped me." Mark shook his head. "I just helped you find your people. Anyone would have done the same." Lily's expression did not change, but her voice grew firmer. "No," she said. "Not anyone. You did." She told him everything. She spoke of her world, of its rules and order. She spoke of how his kindness stayed with her, even when she did not understand it. She spoke of her studies, her rise, her choices. She spoke of how human actions during recent conflicts confirmed what she had learned as a child. As she spoke, Mark listened in silence. His hands rested at his sides, fingers slightly curled. He felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. "You're saying," he said slowly, "that because I helped a lost kid, all this happened?" Lily considered his words carefully. "No," she said. "Because you helped a person." Mark let out a long breath. "I didn't change the future. I just did what felt right." "That is what changed it," Lily replied. She stepped back and gestured down the corridor where her advisors waited. "Through my influence," she said, "my people now stand with humans. We share responsibility for protecting civilians. We offer resources, shelter, and support. Not as rulers. As partners." Mark stared at her, stunned. "You did all that," he said quietly, "and you came all this way just to tell me thank you?" "Yes," Lily said simply. For a moment Mark's eyes burned. He looked away, embarrassed. "Well," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "I don't know what to say." "You do not need to say anything," Lily replied. "I needed you to know." They stood there together, the hum of the station filling the space between them. At last Mark smiled, small and sincere. "I'm glad you're okay, Lily," he said. "I really am." She returned the smile. "So am I." When Lily turned to leave, Mark watched her go. He felt something settle in his chest, warm and steady. He returned to his work a few minutes later, still fixing cables, still helping where he could. But the galaxy felt different now. And somewhere deep in the station's quiet halls, a simple act of kindness had finally come full circle. Lily's ship left the station in silence. She stood by the viewing window as the lights of the station grew smaller, then faded into the dark. She felt no sadness this time. Only calm. Something important had been completed. A circle that had begun many years ago was now closed. Around her, her advisors spoke softly, already discussing future plans. New agreements. Shared projects. Protection efforts that would include humans and many other species working together. Lily listened, but her thoughts were quiet. She thought of Mark. He would return to his work just as he said. Fixing panels. Solving small problems. Helping strangers without thinking much about it. He would not speak of their meeting. He would not seek credit. That was simply who he was. And that, Lily knew, was exactly why humans mattered. When she arrived home, the sky above her world glowed with the soft colors of evening. The cities below were calm, ordered, and familiar. Yet Lily felt that something invisible had changed. Not the buildings, not the rules, but the direction. She was welcomed with respect. Elders greeted her. Leaders asked for reports. She gave them facts, agreements, and timelines. She spoke clearly and without pride. When questions came, she answered them honestly. Some asked why humans were given such trust. Lily did not speak of childhood memories. She spoke of results. Where humans act, she said, civilians survive. Where they listen, conflict slows. They do not seek control. They seek to help. That was enough. Over time, her people began to work closely with humans. Joint teams formed. Shared stations were built. Relief efforts reached places once ignored. Slowly, carefully, a new balance formed. Lily guided this change without force. She allowed others to see for themselves. And they did. As years passed, her people became known not only for order but for fairness. Not only for structure but for care. Lily never claimed this as her own success. She knew where the seed had come from. Far away, Mark continued his life. The station changed again over the years. New wings were added. Old systems were replaced. Mark trained younger workers now, teaching them how to listen to the station's quiet problems. He never spoke much about himself. When asked why he stayed so long in one place, he just shrugged. Someone's got to keep things running, he would say. Sometimes he noticed changes. More joint crews. More mixed species teams. Humans working beside beings they once only read about. There was more trust now. Less fear. He never connected it to himself. He did not know that his name appeared in quiet records, never as a hero but as an example. He did not know that young leaders on distant worlds learned that one human once helped a lost child without asking why. Humanity's reputation changed slowly. There were no great speeches. No grand announcements. Just patterns. Again and again humans chose to help. To stand between danger and the weak. To rebuild instead of abandon. Other species noticed. They began to describe humans differently. Not as fragile. Not as reckless. But as dependable. As stubbornly kind. As brave in a quiet way. Lily watched all of this from her world, guiding when needed, stepping back when not. She carried human values forward, not by copying them but by honoring their heart. Sometimes late at night, she would look at the stars and think of a tired maintenance worker who had knelt beside a frightened child. She hoped he was well. Mark, for his part, never felt famous. But sometimes when he helped someone he noticed something new in their eyes. Trust came faster now. Fear faded quicker. He would smile and go back to work. Neither of them sought legacy. Yet across the stars one had already been made.